trademark for the company.
Well, I understand, but they've built other buildings that have not used that material. They've used
Have they?
ephes, and they've used brick, and
True.
I believe it looks
For
better. I think
purposes of-
it's,
Then I will withdraw my protest.
that's Sun Prairie. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we
Right,
have
he
a
keeps it.
motion, and we've had discussion. Is there anything else?
I'll second.
And I just want to, in particular, note, the orientation change of the building really changes that east side elevation. It makes it more visible from a lot more stuff, where when the building was turned, the car dealership really blocked a lot of, you really didn't see as much of that east side elevation. I think the orientation change really does affect that side. And even though it's the back of your building and it's the storage yard, it's 30 feet tall, people are going to see that. It's just visible now. So it needs to be addressed. I would agree with
Yep.
Matt on that.
Okay. So we have a motion, a second. Are we ready to take a vote on this? All those in favor of tabling this, this whole item until next month, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Well, look forward to seeing you again in a month.
Chair and Board, before we move on to our next
need
item,
that, or-
I just want to point out, so Chair and Board, we have a couple more items to finish tonight, and then the next meeting that still happens tonight is the Planning Commission, where the public hearing
Yep.
takes place for those who are here for this item about Menards. There is a public hearing at the Planning Commission, which will start as soon as we're done with the next couple of items here.
Okay. So we have got three more items. Could I entertain a motion with the board that we table number 4 until next month, just to save some time?
Sure.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second anywhere? Second. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Number 4 is
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
What time does the Planning Commission schedule to start?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
So-
Okay.
Yep. And so, okay, great. We'll save a little bit of time that way. So the next item is the St. John's Hospital Comprehensive Sign Plan, 1575 Beam Avenue East. Staff report, please.
Chair and Commission, St. John's Hospital is coming before you to amend its comprehensive sign plan. This is due to a rebranding that it's, the hospital and its parent company are going through to match its existing name and branding. We'll just dig right into it. So you can see the sign on the left is what's out there existing, and then to the right would be the Health of Fairview logo that would go along with St. John's Hospital. So the existing sign on the east and west elevations is about 440 square feet. The new signs would be just under 300 square feet. You can see this branding would occur throughout the campus. Again, this is what that sign plan currently guides, and that the sign plan is just being asked to be amended to allow this new signage. Again, this light is also not meant to be read, but it is reflective of what's in your sign with your staff report, where the sign plan itself would be revised to allow what the applicant is seeking. One key difference here is that the existing sign plan refers to a separate set of plans, where what we've tried to achieve here on the staff side is to build that in, specifically the language, so that where not someone in 10 years down the road has to find what exact plan set they were referring to, or the applicant would also have further flexibility to change signage out that didn't have to match exactly what was on a plan at one point in time, as long as it met these other requirements. So with that, staff is recommending approval of amending the comprehensive sign plan for 1575 Beam Avenue. The applicant is here and can answer questions of the board, as can staff. Thank you.
Okay. Applicant, would you like to come forward? You can both come up. Please state your name for the record.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Laura Kaitan, and I'm the Vice President of Hospital Operations at St. John's.
And I'm Rick Ferraro from Spectrum Sign Systems, and we're supporting the mHealth team on the rebrand.
Okay. Matt?
I have a question. So, I've worked with the university, worked on campus and such, and so this is not part of the university campus per se. I know it, so we've seen, we have prominent, the M, the Minnesota, University of Minnesota. Do you have other facilities like this that have the same kind of branding with the gold and maroon?
Yes, sir, we do. And this is a partnership with the University of Minnesota, which I think is very important to state, because this is a rebrand that's going to be system-wide that will include 10 hospitals and 66 clinic sites.
Okay, so this is the design.
So this is the graphic design that we're rolling out system-wide. And actually, St. John's would be hospital number 2 in the priority of rebrands. Southdale in Edina was just recently rebranded, and that was the first hospital to receive the new physical signage.
And just so I understand, question for the applicant again, these are basically cabinet signs, right? They're illuminated cabinet signs.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. My feeling is that, well, I like the old signs. I think that they're attractive, more attractive than this. But I think, other than that, I don't see any reason to not go along with this plan.
Well, if I can offer an opinion on
Please do.
on the design, I'm not at all in favor of the proposed signs for this site. I understand that's a rebrand, okay, but we're going from lit channel lettered signs, which are contemporary, higher quality, and this is a real step backwards
Yep.
in the quality of the signs for this site. I'm looking at these, and you see channel letters, and then you see that being replaced with a cabinet sign, and that's something we would see on a retail site for an aging strip mall, basically. So I'm not at all in favor of what we're seeing here today. I think we have kind of a change in the to basically advertising for Health Fairview, Minnesota Health Fairview, whatever. You can see previous we had St. John's as the primary designation for for signage, and now that's being totally flipped, and now basically we're advertising. And I don't see this as equivalent to like a retail scenario. I know our sign ordinance is, just that. I mean, we treat all facilities very similar in terms of the requirements, but this is a comprehensive sign plan. We're making changes to what we've approved. This is St. John's Hospital. It's a very prominent campus and facility in our city, and I just think it's a step backwards.
Chair and Board, I'm just going to step in. Very fair comments on how the sign is shaped, what it looks like, how it's, the cabinet versus channel. The city cannot regulate what it says and where it says. I just want to be very clear on that we cannot regulate message, but we can regulate colors, design, standard.
Yeah, but again, it's our task as a comprehensive sign plan to look at this and look at the aesthetic of what's provided. And I'll give an example. On this specific sign, we got some conflicts in the architectural detailing with this venting here, and they've done a good job with the existing signage and working with that. Here we have competing rectangles in the design. The new sign is not in any way consistent with any of the existing architectural features, so I don't understand it at all in terms of how it's laid out. So I don't know. I was very much taken aback. I think that when you look at the pylon signs, you have signs that match the landscaping, such as these signs, and now we're going to, you know, lettering on a white background, black lettering on a white background, and it does not fit into the landscaping whatsoever on the.
And could I just offer a comment on that as well?
Sure.
When we're doing sign assessments for hospital campuses, you know what? We're looking for brand identity to landmark the hospital, landmark the entrances to the hospital, and then get the patients and visitors to the emergency services or the main entrances of the hospital in the most efficient manner. And I think to your point with regard to now, regarding the monument sign, we have a dark background with kind of fading lettering, if you will. And what we're proposing is a white background with black text, which I think reads a lot better than the existing signage.
I agree. I think there can be improvements made there, but I don't agree with what we're seeing with this overall approach.
Yeah, actually, I have no problem with the monument sign at all, with their proposal. I think it
Because the
makes
monument
sense.
signs have been a problem for patients, visitors coming through because it is a little bit too dark.
Right.
So we too saw the monument signs be more
Yep,
helpful
and-
for the people who are coming to the campus.
And I'm all in favor of improving
I think there's-
the emergency entrance. You don't want to miss that.
Yeah.
So, what was that?
Well, those are my comments. I would like to, I'd like to see a redo on this. I feel strongly against the cabinet signs. I just don't think it's appropriate.
Anybody else here have any?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I sort of liken this to Best Buy, if you will, in that Best Buy's got their corporate monogram, and it fits well with some buildings, but doesn't fit well with all of the buildings they own. Nonetheless, that's still their corporate brand, and I think this is very similar to that. This is Minnesota Health, University of Minnesota Health corporate brand, and it's going to be on all their buildings throughout the Twin Cities, and I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I'm okay with the freestanding signs. I think largely, they're the same shape, the same dimension, the background changes, I do think they pop more. I'm in agreement, though, with a couple of the signs that are on the building. I just don't think there was attention to the architectural detail. I feel as you rebrand the number of facilities, if the goal is just beyond this one to just put the sign up in the designated area without taking into account the architecture, that's, you've got beautiful buildings. I don't know, it's the only,
Yeah,
the
that's
ones
the,
in particular, this one in particular, he's got it to the page. It just was like, I don't know, it just doesn't do anything for the architecture of the building. And that would be my only comment. The rest of them that are freestanding that are directional along the roadways, the parking lots, those are, I don't really have a big issue with those.
Well, I'll make a motion. I would motion that the Design Review Board table this request for modification of comprehensive sign plan for St. John's Hospital. And the reason that they would do, or we would want to see it again, would be to eliminate the cabinet signs and improve that aspect of the proposal.
Okay.
Is that particular to the building?
Yes.
Not the freestanding ones? though?
Yeah, I can live with that. I understand that there's limitations and
Because
problems
those are
with
already
that.
cabinets to.
Right,
to-
right. So
Right.
I'm very concerned about the building signage, and that would be my recommendation to the board.
Could I ask a question?
Yep.
So is your specific request then So I've heard you state cabinet signs several occasions here. So what if this sign now becomes individual letters? What if the background is a colored background which is opaque and the letter characters become these channel illuminated letters that you referred
That's,
to?
I think, what we're looking for.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
we'd want to match what is existing in the quality of the signage that's existing. So, yeah, that would be my recommendation, that
Okay.
we have channel lettered and, logos and backlit signage.
Any other thoughts from the board?
So
We have a
is that something that you can mention in a motion, that the
Yes.
text is changed to channel letters and we make that amendment? Is that a internal staff approval
our
process, or do we
recommendation.
come back to the board, I guess is my question?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
It's really,
So we have a motion, I'll second it. So, any further discussion? The motion is to table this for improvement to the on-building sign with channel letters.
Correct.
That's what we'd like to see it again. Okay?
Okay.
With that, if there's no more discussion, we'll call it to a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
aye.
Any opposed?
I'll oppose this.
Okay, we have one opposed, and we'd like to have a reason, or have a reason stated for the record.
I'm okay with the proposal the way it stands.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is John Glenn Middle School.
Chair and Board, as I go through these few slides for John Glenn Middle School, I just want to again state for those in the audience here, for if anyone's attending the Planning Commission for the 3 public hearings tonight, this is still the Community Design Review Board. We have this last item to wrap up here, and then the Planning Commission will start with the public hearings. But to go into the John Glenn Middle School, they're seeking approval for several building additions and a complete renovation of the interior of the school. To move forward, they are requesting approval of a CUP amendment and design review. Your group tonight is looking for the design review of the exterior building elevations and the site plan. Conditional use permits are required for schools in any zoning district in the city. The use of the property will not be changing. The addition remodel will allow more students to attend the school, but no concerns from staff about the ability for the site to absorb these increases. You're looking at the site plan that's being proposed for St. John's. The main alteration to the site plan is separating the student drop-off area from the busing. So that's up here on along County Road B is where the student drop-off would occur, and then busing on the west side here. Staff visitor and accessible parking stalls would also be to the north of the building. Again, that bus loading area to the west side where there's those 25 bus parking spots. The south driveway accessing the busing area is proposed to be shifted further south on Hazelwood. And again, that student drop-off loop is accessed through a driveway entrance exclusively off County Road B East. You can see here the main exterior building materials that are being proposed to both tie in the existing buildings and enhance the renovation in that existing building. The applicant can talk more about that, the architecture that's being proposed for the building. The project emphasizes, again, improving those exterior appearances of the building as District 622 is improving, looking to upgrade all their buildings throughout the district. In terms of landscaping plans, several shrub and perennial planting beds are proposed near main entrances and at key locations around the building. The planting plan includes overstory trees, ornamental trees, and several existing trees. The applicant is removing 17 trees, which is less than 20% of the overall count for the site, so they're just required to plant 1 to 1, and the applicant's proposing to plant 64 new trees, so they are meeting that requirement. In terms of parking, the site plan proposes 156 parking stalls. Again, there will be 35 stalls exclusively for buses. Code for school states 1 space for every 20 auditorium seats, but if you kind of reverse that math and do 156 parking spaces times 20, they're way overparked based on that code, or at least they're exceeding the code requirements. So there's not a parking concern from staff's level. The applicant will also be required to submit a revised photometric plan to ensure that they're meeting 0.4 foot candle requirements all property lines, as this requirement was being exceeded at the 3 entrance sites in the site plan. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the design plans that are before you tonight. The applicant is present and can answer questions asking staff from the board. Thank you.
Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward? State your name for the record.
My name is Chris Bubzer. I'm with LHB Architects in Minneapolis. I also have with me Nikki Schlemp, who is one of our landscape designers as well, so she can speak to some of the civil and site questions you might have. I have with me some samples of the materials that I can bring up to you to show you what we've got, and I also brought some 3D renderings and fly-throughs if we'd like to see the building in that regard as well. So I'll bring these up to show you as I think Michael's going to pull the images up for you, but basically we have 3 main materials on the exterior of the building. The precast will be charcoal gray, and we've varied the texture of that a little bit with some vertical lines that you'll see in the images. I don't have a sample of that. Precast is heavy, and I didn't feel like bringing it, but it is about this color. This is a fiber cement panel that will cover some of the facade as well. And we have that in 2 colors, the charcoal gray and then a white. The idea is to contrast with the red brick. Most of the exterior of the building on the north side is going to be new. So we're adding a pool on the east end, and we're adding a 2-story addition on the west end, and then a new entrance. So the rendering you're seeing right now is looking from the northeast corner of the site, basically. The pool is the white and gray volume, and then new art and music rooms are the next block on there, and then you can see as you move towards the right of the image, the new entrance. So you can see the charcoal gray precast, the white fiber cement, and then this third material, which I haven't mentioned yet, is a phenolic panel that has a wood grain pattern to it. That's this here. So you see the combination of those materials, and you can see the vertical lines that are cast into the concrete to give some relief to the mass of the building, and you can see the existing red brick that we're also preserving. So you're moving around towards the main entrance here. The charcoal gray you see in the background of the image is this panel that's covering over the existing brick, and then there's learning stairs underneath the canopy, and that is the new safe and secure front entrance right there. So this is the main entrance for guests of the school. That is where the general public would enter the building for events and during the day. This is the new addition that increases the number of classrooms in the building. Moving around here to the north side, again, you can see the precast, and then the canopies made out of the white fiber cement and phenolic resin panels. Here we are moving around to the north side. The large glass volume you see there is a stairway. That's not an entrance. It's just a way to bring light into the building, and the upper floor of that is kind of an informal meeting area for students. Moving around to the west side, this is all new classroom wing that is added on to the west of the building, and we are in the bus parking area now. And moving around towards the south side is the student entrance, where the students will exit or enter the building in the morning when they get off the buses. So that, again, that's another white fiber cement canopy, and now you can see the existing building appearing again south of the addition. So that's a general overview of the construction that we're doing on the north side of the building. There's some smaller additions on the south, but by and large, the majority of the work on the exterior of the building is on the north side. So.
Okay. Any questions from the?
Chris, question for you. The new construction doesn't include any brick, and so you're retaining a lot of the brick that's on the existing building. So the question I have is, what percentage of the new structure will be brick?
We are not using any brick on the new structure.
I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. What percentage of brick on the entire structure will be brick?
I have not calculated that.
Because generally, we're looking for some kind of a
Right.
percentage of brick to be on a building, because brick generally makes a building look a little more rich. And you've heard from the discussion earlier today, brick is important to Maplewood.
Sure. So there is, it depends on the side of the building that you're looking at. There's a lot more brick remaining on the south side of the building where it faces the athletic fields. The north side is going to be mostly the three materials that you're looking at right there. We chose the materials we did for a number of reasons. This is a little bit more of a contemporary appearance to kind of bring the concept of the open school more into the architecture. And we're using the same materials inside and out of the building. So you'll see the materials you're looking at there carry into the building as well. The precast is a far more economical system to use, and that allows us to add more amenities and square footage to the project.
Now, having asked the question, I will tell you that I like the look that you've presented. I think it's more sleek, it's more modern, and I think that's exactly what that school needs.
My only,
Go ahead.
my only concern with the amount of precast is, I think the finish is rendered really well in this. As much as there's going to be, particularly when you come around to this elevation, and there's nothing else breaking it up, what is the quality of the finish on that?
So
Because
yeah, and I wish I could show you a sample of the precast. The finish of the precast is an acid washed finish, so it will bring out some of the texture of the concrete. It'll still be relatively smooth. And then for the vertical grooves, we're actually going to sandblast those. So those will be accentuated. We've looked at samples of that. We don't have a sample of it for our particular project. We've looked at samples of it on other buildings, and it really does add a three-dimensional quality to that facade. That particular facade, I believe that is the west side of the new addition. Is that correct, on the corner?
yeah, it's by the parking lot, the bus parking lot.
Yeah, that's, yes. And the way that those particular classrooms are set up, that particular wall that doesn't have windows on it is where I want to say that's either the teaching wall or that wall is one of the few walls that they have that they need to have the, whiteboards and interactive displays on that they need in the classroom, because we've got one of the things that is the hallmark of the designs we're doing for schools is that we basically have a lot of glass on the exterior wall of each classroom, and then we have a lot of glass on the hallway side as well, so that there's that interplay between the classroom and the rest of the student life that's happening outside the classroom as well. So that forces us to make the two other walls solid, and that's why there aren't windows on that facade in that particular spot. It's maybe a little bit bigger than it, or a little bit smaller than it appears in that image, because it's kind of a wide-angle lens. I want to say it's about 40 feet long. It's basically the depth of a classroom that you're looking at there. It's not a very large, it might look like a larger percentage of the facade than it actually is.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion, or?
Well, I like the design. I think
I do
that it's excellent use of complementary materials to the existing structure, and I like the modern design that's been added. I think it's well done.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion? Then I will.
Yeah, go ahead.
I will, I move that we approve the design review plans. contained within this document.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Then we'll call it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 That sounds like it's unanimous. Good luck with your
Thank you
project.
very much.
See, we do approve plans once in a while. So, next on the agenda is any unfinished business?
Chair and Commission, we have nothing further for you tonight.
Any visitor presentations? No. Board presentations? No. Staff presentations? Then I move we adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Right there, huh?
You're good to go.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Maplewood Planning Commission to order. Roll call.
Lou Yang, present.
Fred Dom, present.
Tushar Desai, present.
Paul Arbuckle present.
Arnold Egan, present.
Looks like we're missing John, huh?
So Chair and Commissioner, yeah, John Eads is absent today, and actually Bill Kempe, who's been your other member, is not seeking reappointment, so his term has ended. So you have 6 sitting members, 5 tonight are in attendance, and 1 vacancy that the city will be looking to fill in the future.
Good, thank you. Approval of the agenda. Any corrections or additions?
Chair and Board, staff does not have any amendments to the agenda as presented tonight.
Move to approve as presented.
There's been a motion by Desar, second by Allen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, passed. Approval of the minutes. Any corrections or additions? Did anybody see anything?
Nope. I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
There's been a motion by Fred,
Second.
second by Desar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstention?
Hearing all ayes except for 1 extension, passed. Public hearing, number 1, John Glenn Middle School, 1516 County Road B East, conditional use permit resolution. Staff?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioner. I'm bringing up some slides to guide us through our discussion here. I just have a few on John Glenn Middle School. They are seeking approval for several building additions and a complete renovation of the school itself. They are requesting approval of a conditional use permit amendment and design review. Your group tonight is looking at that conditional use permit item, which is a resolution is included in your staff report with the conditions laid out within that. Why they need a conditional use permit? Schools are allowed in any zoning district in the city with an approved conditional use permit. John Glenn Middle School already has that conditional use permit, but to make substantial site changes, they do need to amend the permit itself. The use of the property will not be changing, still going to be a middle school, but the middle school will be bigger. So the addition and remodel will allow for more students to attend the school, and staff's analysis of this project, staff is not concerned about the ability for the site to absorb these increases. So that's really the component of the conditional use permit that you're looking at. I'll just walk through the other aspects of the plan and the site plan so you understand what will be going on. The site plan itself here, you can see those areas of emphasis on the outside. So up here to the north, this is where the staff visitor and accessible parking stalls will be located. This is also where the school drop-off, if you're dropping off in a car, you'll be routed to the north off County Road B, and that will all contain and occur within this parking lot. Busing then will occur on this west lot where there's 25 dedicated bus lanes and additional parking for staff. So the intent here is to completely separate student drop-off from the busing for safety reasons. As part of that, the bus parking lot area, that south driveway would shift further to the south along Hazelwood. And then again, as I mentioned, the student drop-off loop is completely accessed off County Road B. You can see the building elevations and the improvements there, and the applicant has a video that they can show you that gives you a better idea of what this building will look like, and we can get to that after my brief slides here. But again, the proposed project, the big picture, emphasizes improving the exterior appearance of the building. The landscape plan, you can see here, several plantings throughout the site, but really focus on main entrances and key areas of the building to enhance the view of that. They're removing 17 trees, which is less than 20% of the site's overall tree count, which then, because of that, they only have to replace trees on a one-to-one basis. With that said, they're proposing to plant 64 new trees, so they're more than exceeding that requirements. A couple last items on parking and lighting. The proposed site plan provides for 156 parking spaces. In addition are those 35 dedicated stalls for buses. The code for schools says 1 space for every 20 auditorium seats, given that standard. And if you do use that 156 parking spaces, they have plenty of parking. They're not at all near that minimum threshold, so staff does not have any concerns with parking. And then staff will require a photometric plan be resubmitted to the staff as they're exceeding the foot candle maximum at their 3 entrances, not anything that we're overly concerned with. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit amendment. As I mentioned, the applicant is present and can address questions directly from the board. As the chairperson pointed out, this is a public hearing. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Mr. Chair.
I didn't see a report from the fire chief. Is that going to work for fire trucks if they need to come into that guest parking on the north end?
Chair and Commission, the fire department does review all projects, and typically if they don't have comments specifically stated, that's a no comment, and yes, they are comfortable with circulation to the building and accessibility for fire and water.
It says they're going to renovate all the spaces. That means the whole interior of the whole school is going to get all completely redone.
Correct, Chair and Board, or Chair and Commission.
And they're going to build an auditorium? Because it says the 20 seats per auditorium, and I know there's not an auditorium there now.
Chair and Commission, no, that's not a reference to a new building, that's a reference to the parking code requirement. That's how the city measures what minimum parking standard should be, is based off the auditorium.
But there is no auditorium there.
That's where it gets a little questionable.
Okay.
But that's why I say if you do the 156 times 20, then if they had this hypothetical auditorium, it could fit up to 3,100 people, which is much larger than the school population, so we're not concerned with the parking aspects.
Okay.
Is there a duration for this project? Because I didn't see anything in there, so is this something that's lasting one summer or multiple years?
Chair and Commission, the applicant will be better prepared to answer that, but it's my understanding that it will be somewhat of an extended process as they're phasing it in while students are in and out of the building.
Is that a question then too about eliminating one of the exits for the parking in the front there, so that's only one in and out on County Road B?
Chair and Commission, I mean, staff doesn't have a concern with that, and we understand the rationales to what they're doing from safety and circulation purposes.
Okay. Did the individual from John Glenn want to come up?
So, Chris.
Did anybody else have any questions or anything there?
Hello, I'm Chris Bubser from LHB Architects in Minneapolis.
Welcome.
I was conferring with my associate if you had a question for me right there.
I did about the parking in the north lot there. It used to be able to come in and then you go out onto Hazelwood Avenue. There used to be a
Correct.
circle through there. And I know that I was just concerned that people coming, but is that still going to be the drop-off, right?
So the parent drop-off will be on the north, that is correct. We are eliminating the drive-through that connected that parking lot with the bus parking lot for safety reasons. So you will no longer be able to drive through the parking lot. You'll have to come back out the entrance that you came in on County Road D, yeah. So,
And that doesn't create a congestion issue then with?
we don't believe it does, but there's also some other mitigating factors that doesn't allow us to add another driveway to that side. There's the rain gardens along the roadway there that we need to preserve. My understanding is most of the students arrive via bus anyway, and that having the loop going through the parking lot the way we've designed it will allow the parents to just drive straight through and create a fairly smooth traffic flow. So
is that traffic gonna be one way into the parking lot, so you can come in only one way and go out, or it's two-way?
the entrance has to be two-way because it's only one entrance, but, and would you like to address? So this is Nikki Schlemp. She's one of our landscape architects. She can better address the site planning issues.
It has two outs and one in, right? The turn lanes.
Hello, again, I'm Nikki Schlepp, landscape architect with LHB. The question about the circulation through that north parking lot, it would be two-way coming in and out. However, when they enter, they would essentially it'd be a one-way loop system. And then towards the drop-off area, there's about 3 lanes width, so people can be passing, dropping, and with the accessible entry points as per code.
So if I were to come in from this side that you pointed earlier, you can't go directly to the entrance of the school. You have to make your way around.
You have
get
to make
back
the
in.
loop, exactly.
Okay, okay, that
When
makes
that
sense.
helps with, again, that circulation and the traffic and the backup that would happen within this parking lot and then come back out.
So the extension. Didn't quite get to see the building, but. So since you're breaking the 2 parking lots apart, is the building extending further and blocking that area that you had a drive-through right now, right? So, and it's still meeting all the requirements for the distance away from the curb and so on? Okay.
Yes, we are by far exceeding that setback for the building.
Back of the building, okay.
What was did somebody ask the length of what the time to complete the structure?
So I'm a little fuzzy on the details because we're still ironing that out with the, Adelson and Peterson is the contractor. But the plan for the district is to consolidate and reorganize the middle school options in the district. And I believe it is the fall of 2022 that this school has to be complete to accept students from other schools. So one of the challenging parts of this project is that this construction needs to happen while the students are in the building. And so it will be a 2-year plus construction period that and that's why the details are a little fuzzy yet, because they're still trying to figure out exactly how to make that happen. So what I can tell you is that the plan is for construction to start yet this spring in March or April, and continue until the fall of 2022, when it's complete.
Do you have any cost projections yet, or?
The budget is approximately, is it 69 million? Is that right, Michael? Do you remember? It's in that neighborhood.
Okay. Do you have any questions? No?
So the tennis courts in the back are also taken out?
I'm sorry, say that
The
again?
tennis courts that are present today, they stay?
I'm sorry, I still didn't. The tennis, yes, the tennis courts remain, yes. They're not being
Current condition,
changed.
or they are getting upgraded as well?
They,
They're staying in their current condition because they're relatively new. And that, right now, they overlap an existing softball field backstop, and that will be moved with the project. That's an update from these plans that you do have. That's really the only shift in the athletic field, with the exception of where, on this east side, where the pool will be. It impacts these 2 baseball fields that they have, making them pretty much unplayable. And so that will be taken out, and it'll be just a large soccer, football, lacrosse field for them that after construction, they will renovate that back for the field.
That was a stupid question. How do they work in that courtyard? Do they have to helicopter stuff in, or what?
Well, that was a big discussion, as we didn't want them having to wheel, carts of aggregate down. So anyway, it's going to be concrete, and they're going to pump it in from over the top.
Fun, huh?
This way. Anybody have anything?
Nope. Anybody else?
I think we're satisfied. Thank you. Is there anyone that else would like to come up and speak about the project? This is open to the public. Is there anyone that would like to speak? This is your last chance to speak your mind. Anybody? Okay. Seeing none, I close the public hearing. Okay. You want to make a motion?
No, go ahead.
Move to approve a resolution for a conditional use permit for John Glenn Middle School at 1560 County Road B East.
Second?
There's been a motion by Duchar, second by Allen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing all ayes, passed. Now, this is just a recommendation by us. This will go before the city on February
Chair and Commission, February 10th.
10th. Thank you. Number 2, dog daycare at 47 Century Avenue North. A conditional use permit resolution. Staff?
Chair and Commission, thank you. Yes, again, we're looking at the property at 47 Century Avenue North, as indicated by the red rectangle on the site plan, or the site map in front of you on the screens. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to allow outdoor play areas for a dog daycare. The existing zoning for the site is business commercial, and the future land use is commercial in the 2040 plan. Dog daycare centers are an allowed use within the business commercial zoning district. However, the city code requires approval of a conditional use permit for the outdoor aspects of this project. So again, the dog daycare itself is a permitted use, but having the facilities outside is what triggers the CUP request that's before you tonight. So the proposal is to convert a vacant building, again, 47 Century Avenue is a vacant building today, into the dog daycare for dog training, grooming, sleepovers, retail sales of dog supplies. The play areas would happen in removed driveway areas to the north of the building, which the applicant would construct outdoor play areas both to the north and west of the building, which are shown on this overview map that you can see to the right of the text. Play areas will be covered with a turf that is specifically made for this type of use. The fencing that the applicant is proposing is an 8-foot chain link fence with windscreens to be installed around the play areas. Some background on how we got here tonight. The applicant has held a neighborhood meeting, notified property owners within 500 feet. Staff also sent out a survey to property owners within 500 feet. You received 8 responses in your report, and then I handed out to the commission 2 additional responses we received since the report itself went out to you last week. Staff mailed public hearing notices for this meeting tonight to the property owners within 500 feet, and also published that in the official newspaper for the city. So you're holding the public hearing tonight, and if you make a recommendation, we're looking at a February 10th meeting for the council to give their final decision on this. So our recommendation is approval of the conditional use permit for outdoor play areas with the dog daycare center, with the conditions outlined as the permit should only be approving this limited type of operation that we've been describing for the outdoor play areas themselves. Hours of operation for dog pickups and drop-offs shall be limited to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Provide dumpster enclosures for all trash enclosures. And then to repair all fencing and ensure that the site is tidy at all times. As you've noted in the staff report, the applicant's not proposing any improvements to the building itself, but given the nature that the building's been vacant for quite some time now, there are some issues that need to be addressed just for general upkeep of the site that we'll be looking to have addressed as they start to occupy the building. I think the applicant is here, but I've never met them in person, so I don't know, I can't pick them out. But staff is also here to answer any questions that the commission may have tonight. But again, staff is recommending approval of the CUP as before you tonight.
I noticed the differences in the fence heights there. One was 6 and 8. I guess I don't know where those are located. Is that one's a wooden fence and one's a spiral fence? Is there going to be some wooden fence in the front there, or is that all just in the back?
Chair and Commission, there's an existing fence in the back, and then the new fence that's being proposed is around specifically around the play areas themselves.
Which is on the east there, right?
So I don't see a clear understanding of the grading in this case. So, and I just happened to read the last email that we just got today, and folks who are living right behind that house, in my mind, have a legitimate question as to the grading, and are we gonna have runoff from that exterior area to the neighbor's yard?
Chair and Commission, I will take the first attempt, and we happen to have our assistant city engineer tonight, and so he can put me back on track if I start to sway off. But to remove the pavement and put in the turf, they will be required to pull a grading permit from the city, and that grading permit will ensure that any runoff or stormwater is really usually the concern, but any kind of runoff would have to be contained within the site, and that's what the city would be looking for in terms of being able to approve that grading permit.
Just maybe a little more explanation. What is that containment are we talking about in a situation like this where you've got a lot of dog fishes and urine and everything that is running off in that area?
Chair, Commission, good question. I don't believe there was a grading plan necessarily submitted with this application, but that would be something that we could definitely look at when they come in for permitting on this project. As far as containment to ensure that that runoff doesn't go onto the neighboring property, oh boy, I don't know. I don't know if there's curbing along that existing parking lot there that would help contain it within the site or not, but that's something that we can take a look at, see if there's curbing there that would help contain it. Otherwise, curbing could be added within the parking lot to help contain that on the site. Other than that, I can't really think of any other options that might be available for that. A landscape berm along that property line, but it'll come down to when that grading permit's submitted, taking a look at that and seeing how much of that runoff from that area is being directed towards the neighboring properties.
I thought I had read somewhere in one of the reports here that stated something about having a gravel base with the drain tile beneath that. I don't know, maybe I was dreaming, but I thought I read something like that.
Should be, in my mind, very scary considering the
Yeah.
fact that urine and fishes can go down then.
Chair and Commission, as you consider this item, that is something that could be added to the conditions about before any permits are issued, that having a plan submitted for city staff approval that shows how the applicant would specifically and concretely retain any of those worrisome items about runoff, and that's something that then we could follow up, have the ability then to follow up on before any permits are issued.
Here in attachment 5, it says the turf is installed over a base layer of drain tile to provide space between the asphalt surface and the turf. Drainage should take place in an air to circulate. So that's kind of the proposal there, I think. Would you guys like to come up? And I think we're ready for you.
Hi, my name is Chris Holbrook. This is my wife Angie Holbrook, and we've applied for this permit so that we may have exterior dog areas at 47 Century Avenue for a dog business we would like to open there. As Mr. Martin stated, it's been vacant for some time. I think it was originally built as a auto services building. It needs, and we've talked to him, it needs some serious upgrades on sprinkler systems. We need to enlarge the diameter of the water coming into the property, add handicap bathroom facilities. So there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done inside, and we received the report and will gladly work with whatever landscaping solution is needed between the back of the building and the wooden fence which exists. I believe it's about 60 feet from the current site plan.
Now, was that correct in what I read in your letter here, that it's going to be on a gravel base with drain tile? That's going to,
No, it's not. Actually, the intent was not to remove any of the driveway. It's, this is how this dog turf is usually applied. It's over asphalt or concrete. But there's it's like a grating. It's like a half-inch maybe of grating that's put underneath the turf that helps with drainage and helps like with airflow. So it's very new to me. This is, the franchisor has introduced this to me. That's what they do in other locations.
so it doesn't trap it, it just actually
Right.
prevents air.
It doesn't sit there.
Yeah, it's like that, I don't know what you call it, dry vent, like that, those 2x2 flooring chunks you put in your basement that have airspace under
For
them.
carpeting.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And are you buying a franchise? You're not the,
We
that's,
have already signed the franchise agreement. Yes,
Yeah.
it's a
Okay.
franchise.
And we intend to buy this building if we are permitted to use the outdoor portion of it.
do you have any letters that state that they're, I know in here it was talking about that they have dozens of these facilities, and they've never had any complaints. Did you ever have any letters of recommendation from the franchisees that says that they, people love them in their neighborhoods and that, or anything? Or,
We can get those. I mean, I have something with me that's kind of something that was used in another location. It's actually,
Yeah, and to your point, they have, I believe, 33 locations. They've been open for 23 years. They've never had a fine, a permit, a problem. The two concerns are typically noise and smell, which, if you're running a dog daycare business, those are the two things you work to prevent people from being exposed to. So there are, to Angie's point, letters from the owner on how they abate those issues, which we can gladly provide.
Okay.
yeah, we can do that. I just have like an excerpt from a letter from actually the landlord who lived close by, like 150 feet from the building.
And
the
it was,
business.
it was something that's saying that they thought it was good, or?
Yeah, that they never had any problems with noise, smell, in general, with anything, that they just thought they were a good neighbor. They also had a location, and they probably still do, that is in a multi-tenant building, and it's adjacent to a food service. So, and they never have any issues. That's another thing that they've brought up, so. And also, they have locations that are like very close to residential. In fact, in Rochester, the location is like 5 feet. The outdoor play area is 5 feet from an apartment building. And so, and there haven't been any known issues with that.
Because that's, in all our letters here, the biggest concern is mostly is like you say, the smell of the dog and the barking. How are you going to try to prevent that? Do the handlers, are they out there with them all the time to prevent that?
All the time. They're never unsupervised. And in fact, we have 12 dogs, only 12 dogs per handler at one time. So it's a small ratio of dogs, and they're always there. And they have to interact with them as well. They're not just supervising, they're actually, playing with them, working with training, group sits and stuff like that. So it's
Yeah,
pretty structured.
The model of this franchise is enrichment for dogs. So you don't throw 50 dogs in a crate and let them fight all day. There's actually a application process. They have to go through a behavior assessment. They get sorted and trained with employees of Central Bark who are also trained to prevent any, if they start fighting, if they start biking, distract them, do training.
Yeah.
They get broken up into groups and moved around. Majority of the time, they'll be inside the building. That's where there's over 50% of the day they sleep, to be honest. But, this is obviously so they can go outside and relieve themselves. And like this week, it would be very brief visits to the outdoors.
Yeah, it's usually when it's very, very nice out, on those very, when it's too hot and humid, they're not going to be outside for very long. In the winter, it's usually very cold. So same thing. It's on those days where it's like 75 and sunny, they might be outside for, a good chunk of the day, maybe. Depends.
I saw the hours of operation being 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but then I also saw the comments about boarding dogs over the weekends and things. So that means it's a 24/7 operation?
Yeah, but they sleep all night. So, I mean, they would never be outside, after 7 p.m. It would just be the overnight dogs. We would close at 6:30, but we would let the overnight dogs out for their final potty break between 6:30 and 7. And then we're back in the morning at 6:30 and we let them out 6:30 to 7. And then our doors open at 7 and then daycare dogs start coming in at 7.
And this is a little add-on, a little-known secret in the industry. When you take your dogs to dog daycare centers and they stay overnight, no humans are there overnight with them. Humans go home and come back in the morning. So we've been taking our dog to similar places for several years, 4 or 5 years. And I was kind of surprised, actually, to learn that they go home, leave the dogs there, and the dogs sleep all night, and they get an early morning potty break. But it's essentially, drop your dog off when you go to work, pick them up when you come home, so there wouldn't be any really evening hours or comings and goings.
So what about housekeeping during the winter months when it's pretty cold? You take your dogs out for potty breaks then you've got staff that's gonna follow up to do the cleaning and everything right away?
It's done by the dog handlers right away.
Yeah.
The dog handlers that are out there, when they see an accident, they clean it up right away. Inside and outside, it's the same. It's done immediately.
Yep, there's a process, there's EPA guidelines on
Yep.
sanitizing the areas. That's all in our information. But again, that would be a failure of our business if you walked in and you saw or smelled things like that. So disposal of them, environmentally approved, is like one of the most important things.
Sanitation is.
Yeah,
It's
sanitation.
one of the most important things.
Absolutely.
Is keeping it clean.
Staff, maybe I can get some feedback. Have we got any situations like this or businesses like this one in Maplewood today?
Chair and Commission, we do not have any dog daycares in Maplewood specifically. There are veterinarian clinics that provide boarding overnight services as an addition to being a vet. We do know that there's been several inquiries about dog daycare in the last year or two. So this is something that seems to be emerging in our market here in Maplewood, and this is the first one that's come through with the actual proposal.
So with that, my question is that do we have any requirement in terms of how many dogs you can have per certain square footage or something like that?
Chair and Commission, no, not in our zoning code, and nor do we for veterinarian clinics.
So they can have as much as about 60 dogs in that place, and it should be taken care of. There will be no pollution control or any problem?
Well, Chair and Commission, your control here is the conditional use permit, so you are seeing what they're proposing, and that's the parameters that they would be held to based on the site plan and verbiage within that.
So, my question to you, are you aware of the additional issues or complaints that are required by staff, you know?
Yeah, we received a copy of the staff report recommendation and noticed there were 6 responses to the 78 letters that were sent out. It seemed like half had concerns. We did go and knock on 24 doors like 2 weekends ago, introduce ourselves to neighbors, and out of the 7 people who answered, 3 were supportive, 3 were indifferent, 1 didn't like the idea. And the neighbor who expressed the concern about runoff right behind the building, we gave our information. We said we'd love to send you reasons we think that will be mitigated and not a concern once it opens. So we've seen those if that's what you're referring to. And again, with landscaping in the distance from building to that wooden fence, which is there, is a really, 60 feet. I think the amount of dog urine that would be out there is going to be very minimal. I don't think there'll be a stream running 60 feet into his yard, but, there were some great ideas here with berms or curbs or gravel, whatever the landscaping requirements will be to mitigate that.
There's always a way to.
Yeah, there's
mitigate.
solutions to those.
What is the grade right now? Is the house is lower than the back of the?
Well, it's
It
right
looks to
behind the
be lower
building.
than
It
the
goes
street.
out flat, about 60 feet, and then there's the wooden fence, and then behind that wooden fence is when there's like a hill that
It does
goes
go
down
down.
into the
It's a little difficult to assess because currently the back of the building is like an illegal dumping zone. There's all kinds of couches and TVs and stuff back there, and it's covered with snow, so. But yeah, it does look like, and I think it was in his report, that initially when the building was built 40 years ago, I think the back of the lot was elevated naturally as a berm against the residential houses on the other side of the fence, so.
At least you want to have your furniture then.
Yeah, if anyone needs a deal on a couch, I know where you can find one.
Looking for.
You're going to be adding a sprinkler system to the building, is that right?
Yeah, there's currently no
what-
sprinkler system. Mr. Martin informed us that's a requirement. And the water service going into the building now is a 1-inch diameter pipe, which is not sufficient.
Yeah, I was wondering.
To service that. So that's part of our negotiation with the owner, is that, the diameter of the pipe needs to be
Yeah.
expanded before we can buy the building, because then the cost of putting the sprinkler system inside the building, that's on us. So there's a lot of code updates, I guess, to bring it up to the 21st century that we would be investing
And
investing
painting
in.
too, right? Painting the building?
Yeah.
And what?
Painting the outside structure too, is that, you're gonna do any of that? or-
Yeah, yeah, and we, you know, we have an architect, engineer, contractor all on standby because without getting the permitting, it doesn't make sense for us to pay for designs of that. But there aren't any major renovations except dressing it up. I mean, it looks pretty
On the
rough on the
outside,
outside right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
So painting, doing something with that awning. We haven't looked at what the sign, you know, regulations are and what our needs will be, so I know we'll be back and working with everyone quite a bit.
Now, what, you know, the other hours of operation there, I'm concerned too that owner's gonna say, I need to come and pick up my baby, and I need to come I'm getting in town at 8 o'clock or whatever. Is that, are you gonna be able to stay to that time schedule, or are you gonna give in to that, or?
Well, we have like late fees that we charge, and it's, it would make more sense oftentimes for an owner to maybe come and get them the next day. If they need to, you know. I mean, we can, if they want to pay the late fee, you know, I mean, they can, we would stay.
It would be a rare
But-
exception. You know, we
Yeah.
reside in St. Paul on the Midway by the soccer field, so we're not gonna be, it's not a 5-minute, like, hey, we'll let you pick up your dog at 9 PM. I mean, you know, it's, again, through a franchise, there's a very actually rigid set of behaviors on hours and practices that we intend to maintain.
Because that'd be a concern for the homeowners too, coming and going beyond the set time, that's, so it'd be nice.
Yeah, I mean, if that is a concern, I guess we would have to limit that to our customers, you know.
Right.
It's not something that would happen
Yeah.
a great deal, because
Fred?
One of my concerns for the neighborhood is that the times that you said that they wouldn't be outside is in cold weather, hot weather, humid weather. That's fine, because that's when other people have their houses closed up too. But they would be outside more during the pleasant days. And that's when the neighbors would be outside doing barbecues, having their windows open, and that's when it would be more of a concern. So, I mean, it's kind of
yeah.
good that, I mean, but it would work against the neighborhood, because
Not
that's when people are out
necessarily,
there.
though, because the whole point is to manage the dogs.
Right.
And honestly, if the dogs, I mean, the dogs are put into their play groups inside. You know, they come together. There's always some barking, you know, when they're new to each other and everything. That's all done inside. You know, by the time that they go outside, they've been playing together already. And barking, you know, it's when a new dog comes into the scene or new people, which is very limited because we would not introduce new dogs to the dog play groups outside,
Yeah.
or people. I mean, we restrict that. We don't give tours. You know, tours are done for new customers before daycare even begins. So it's
Yeah.
all about managing the dogs.
Well,
their
and I have a
behavior
dog.
and their-
I have a dog, but the squirrels are what, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
he
And
barks
I-
at squirrels.
I have
And
a
they get
dog, too.
rotated in groups. It's not like you take all, whatever we have, 30 or 50 dogs out at once. I mean, they're, like
They're
Angie
half
said,
and
they're
half.
groups of, you know,
They're
10 or
groups that
12,
are-
and
yes.
there's
Yeah.
always at least one attendant for, no more than 12 dogs per person. And,
It's part of, and honestly, if there's a dog, there are some dogs who bark all the time, you know, and they're hard to manage. That's just a part of their DNA or something. But those dogs, if they are hard to manage and they're disruptive, then they're not really good candidates for daycare necessarily. They make it very difficult for everyone. So, I mean, and like I said before, there are, I know I get nervous.
She's nervous. Relax.
But, yes, it's part of managing the dogs, you know. Because the founders of this franchise have been doing it, you know, for over 20 years. They started it in the late 90s, and
Okay.
they know dogs.
And I'm assuming that you've gone through some training with this franchise already?
We are going to, as we get closer to actually opening our business, we'll be going through 2 weeks of training full-time in Florida. And Also, our employees will get fully trained, not in Florida, but they have extensive training that we can do with our employees.
We currently have a 1-hour conference call with the franchise every week. So we're constantly learning. We've already taken a lot of the educational things like pet CPR and whatnot. We have a national meeting with them in a month, and then like 2 weeks of immersive training before we as owners are allowed to open the doors on their behalf.
And veterinarian, is there a close clinic by too, in case there's issues, or?
Well, I know there's one up Century Avenue, right next to the old Deege landscaping building right there. So that's a mile, I'm guessing, from the place.
Some too, like in Woodbury. down.
Yeah.
Yeah, Deege Garden Center was pretty far.
Anybody have other questions?
Nope. Nope.
I think that'll do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? Everybody's here for Menards? Is there anyone else? Last and final call. I'm closing the public hearing then. Somebody want to make the only thing that I would like would be a revisit after a year or something.
Isn't that part of the
That's part of
conditional use permit?
Is it?
Yeah, that's
You do
part of
revisit-
it.
You do revisit a year?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
You do revisit after a year to see that everything's looking good?
Chair and Commission, every conditional use permit that gets approved is reviewed by the city council on an annual basis.
Okay.
So I've got a conditional use permit proposal with 3 additions, if you guys want me to take a shot at it.
Sure.
And then,
The white, yeah. He's got
Yeah.
that.
okay? So is there any more discussion, or should I go ahead?
Go ahead, then we'll have
Okay.
the discussion.
We could discuss it
Okay.
after too.
Motion to approve the attached conditional use permit resolution to allow outdoor play areas for a dog daycare at 47 Century Avenue North with the following additional requirements. Landscaping plan needs to be approved by the city engineer. Grading needs to be verified to be away from the rear of the property. And number 3, containment of runoff needs to be addressed with the city engineer.
Anything about barking or anything?
I think that'd be fine the way it's sitting.
Okay, but there's been a motion by Deshar, second by Allen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, it's passed. This is just a recommendation. This will go before the city on February 10th. Thank you. Since the evening's running so late, I think we're going to cancel number 3, the Menards here.
There's always a funny one amongst the group, you know?
Okay, number 3 is Menards, the 2080 Maplewood Drive. Comprehensive Plan Amendment Resolution requires 4 council votes. B, zoning map amendment ordinance requires 4 council votes. Conditional use permit amendment, setback variance, and shoreland overlay variance resolution. Staff?
Chair and Commission, thank you. Looking at the overhead tonight to provide you again with a brief overview of the project that's before you. Menard Incorporated is looking to build a new store at its site at 2280 Maplewood Drive. The red polygon that you see on the site overview map is their existing store site. They are also looking to purchase the 6 homes directly to the south. They have purchase agreements in place, so those property owners have agreed to sell their properties to Menards. And they would demolish those homes and incorporate the land into the overall site for a new store. To move forward, I know the chair just mentioned the items that you're looking at tonight. In addition to those items, the project also needs a public utility easements vacation, which the city council exclusively reviews. Design review and a lot division, the Community Design Review Board looked at those items earlier today and actually tabled the item to have the applicant come back with additional building elevations as we're looking at what those materials and colors and how they interact. So they will be taking another look at the elevations of the building and how the revised site plan, which I'll get into a little later tonight as well, and how those would interact. So with that said, the existing Menards store is guided mixed-use community by the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. It is zoned light manufacturing. The 6 residential properties to the south, again indicated by that yellow rectangle, those are the 6 homes, are currently guided by the 2040 plan as low-density residential and zoned single dwelling. The applicant is requesting that those 6 properties be guided to the mixed-use community and rezoned to light manufacturing to be consistent with the existing Menards store. And I do want to emphasize here that the 6 property owners endorsed and or signed off on each of these applications as well, because they are the existing property owners. So for each application that was made to the city, not only Menards submitted and signed, but each of the other property owners did as well, just so that we have full understanding that all the property owners are fully aware of what this project entails. A conditional use permit is required for all uses, for outdoor storage uses, and for any building being built within 350 feet of residential property. So the existing store does have this CUP already in place. As you reviewed your staff report, we did make mention that all operational related items in the existing CUP are to remain. None of those, items are being struck from the conditional use permit. But there are new items that staff is recommending that the conditional use permit address. Those items are shown here on the right side of the screen, not necessarily intended to be read because that would be difficult, but they are contained within the staff report directly, both in the report discussion items and then in the resolution for the conditional use permit. Broadly, those items include further regulation of site lighting, fence placement, and setbacks of the warehouse and outdoor sales areas. What I mean by outdoor sales is that specifically, as I'm sure the people who reside in the neighborhood know, Menards has those seasonal sales like fireworks or pumpkins in the fall, and that we're requiring a 100-foot setback from any residential property line, so that would shift those sales further to the north side of the parking lot. As part of their request, Menards has requested several variances. I'm going to outline what those variance requests were and then what staff's recommendations, but I'm going to preface it with saying that Menards has reviewed all staff recommendations in terms of variances, both on the setback and later on the shoreline overlay, and they have agreed to abide by staff recommendations, so they are willing to revise their site plan and adapt their building massing to meet these setback requirements that staff has outlined in the staff report.
Not the ones that are code, but the ones that you requested, right?
Chair and Commission, it's a mix. Some are code, and so we'll walk through those. So item A, so this illustration of the site plan was included with your staff report. Item A, the applicant was requesting a 0-foot setback from Maplewood Drive. That's the main building. Staff is recommending that be approved. That helps shift the whole site to the north, away from residential areas. And we do believe that meets the intent of the zoning, the variance standards as outlined by state statute. Item B, which then drops to the south side, the applicant recommended a 0-foot setback from County Road B. Now that's from the right-of-way line, which is further setback than the road line itself. Staff is recommending denial of that recommendation or of that variance request, and that it would meet the minimum setback for commercial buildings, which is 30 feet. So that is what staff is recommending, that they meet code and be set 30 feet back. Item C, it looks at the setbacks on the east side of the site for both the main building and the warehouse building. That's kind of where we split, where staff is okay with the variance request for the main building to be just over 33 feet off the property line. That building area will be in an area that already is improved area. It's currently a storage yard area for Menards, so that's not encroaching or taking away green space in that area. Now, when you go south of that, the C to the south here, this guy, where the storage yard would be within the residential areas, that is new storage yard area, and we are recommending that variance request be denied, and they would have to meet that, the warehouse building, denied to a point. The warehouse building would have based on its size, would have to be set back 100 feet. We are recommending that it be set back 50 feet instead of the 30 feet that the applicant is requesting. So I guess somewhat of a compromise on what that variance request would be. Skipping over to the west side of the site, item D, the applicant had requested a 10-foot setback for the parking lot along the south property line. One thing they had amended is that they took out some parking on the south over here. Our recommendation is they take out all the parking where that D is living within and just create that buffer of at least 20 feet, which is what code requires. The applicant has agreed to do that and eliminate those parking spaces. What that does is it has the ability to leave the existing fence in place between those three homes that will remain, and the vegetation that is on the other side of the fence between the homes and the fence. So we see that as a net positive for that part of the site. Item E, which drops down again into the new storage area, which would be within the residential areas. They had requested a 10-foot setback. We're again recommending that be denied and at least have that 20-foot setback, which is what code requires. Lastly, F, similar situation on the east side where they were requesting a 5-foot setback. Because that's in an area for the storage yard that's existing conditions, we are recommending approval of that setback variance. This next slide just basically is the headline for each thing I just said. So it is also outlined in your staff report, and I'm more than happy to revisit any specifics that we're walking through. But again, I do want a big picture point out, Menards has agreed that they would meet all the different recommendations that staff has been making on the setback requirements. The next variance request is in terms of the shoreline overlay. So you can see this light blue shaded area. That's 1,000 feet from Keller Lake, and that's where anything within that is subject to the shoreline overlay ordinance. The existing Menard site is approximately 95% impervious, and that's considered grandfathered in. So we're not looking to hold them to any impervious maximums below that 95%. Now, should point out, they essentially have zero water treatment, stormwater treatment on that site today. So any new project is going to require that current city and watershed requirements are met. So they're going to be retaining stormwater. We have our assistant city engineer that can speak much more detail than I can on that. But the big picture is that would improve water quality and water control in that site. Portions of 3 of the residential properties Menards is purchasing is within that overlay. So these are new areas to the site. You can see that westernmost parcel is completely within the shoreline overlay. The next parcel to the east is mostly in it, and then the next parcel again is barely in it, but it's still in it. So we're looking at that shaded blue area. The applicant's initial variance request is to allow it to be 100% impervious. Now, the maximum is 40%. You can get a bonus up to 60% with stormwater management techniques as approved by the city engineer. So the applicant was looking for a variance essentially over that 40%, given that there would be additional stormwater management practices in place. Where we landed, as outlined in the staff report, it was 80%. And again, to get there, they have to work with the city engineer to not just meet our stormwater requirements, which the site doesn't do now, but exceed that with enough additional practices that the engineer is going to feel comfortable at 80%. Now, with the setbacks I just outlined that are now going to be required, they get some additional green space and they start to have more pervious surface just because we're saying no on some of their variance requests. But they still have some ground to make up on, either by adding additional green space or the use of materials like porous concrete or pavers that help them get down then to that 80% impervious. So the applicant, again, they're agreeable to this recommendation, but they still have to do some work to get to that 80%. I'll go through these next few items. These were somewhat design, or they are design related. The site plan, though, is of importance to the Planning Commission as well. They were requesting, initially the applicant's requesting 3 access drives. So they're all contained in with this circle here. Staff is recommending the southernmost access drive here be eliminated, and that between the stormwater pond and the homes to the south, that would all be retained as green space. So no cars could come off Maplewood Drive within that access, because there wouldn't be one. The applicant, again, is agreeable to eliminating that access. So all access to the site would then come from the two access points further up on Maplewood Drive. The yard access for the storage yard would be on the east side of the building between New Menards building and Schmelz Countryside buildings. There's a pipeline that runs through this property, and that's why the building is set where it is. It essentially runs parallel with that pipeline and its easement. They can't build within that pipeline easement, but that's really largely dictates then where this building can be placed on the site. And then the storage yard would be east and south of the main building, with stormwater ponds on the west and east sides of the site. The building elevations, which I mentioned earlier, the CDRB did their initial review today. They've asked the applicant to incorporate staff's recommendations, essentially of replacing the concrete block with brick, and then they had some additional requests and observations that were made within the design board meeting context today, and that they'll be bringing that back to a future meeting to further refine the look of the building and how it presents itself, not just to 36 and 61, but also of equal importance, how it presents itself to County Road B, the warehouse, the back of the building, the landscaping, and the fence. So those are all items that the CDRB are honed in on and taking more care to ensure that those things are done right. Again, this just runs through our recommendations initially on the elevations themselves. Don't want to just reiterate again, but the CDRB is asking the applicant to incorporate all those plus the other items they talked about tonight. In terms of landscaping, we're recommending that the applicant be required to resubmit a tree preservation plan, largely because with the increased setbacks that I outlined based on the variance request and how staff is approaching them, the building on County Road B is being further set back, and the parking lots are being taken in places too, and there's an opportunity to preserve existing trees. I believe the applicant, who will be before you and here in just a couple of minutes, indicated earlier tonight that it's upwards to 77 additional trees that will be able to be preserved in meeting these new revised setbacks. So we want to see that reflected on that tree preservation plan, landscaping plan. Also, the addition of expanded green space needs to be reflected. One thing along County Road B, the applicant initially proposed 7 trees. We're recommending that they be required to double that to 14, with at least 50% of them evergreen in nature. The applicant, again, with the conversation earlier today, is open to looking at that further and increasing the foliage along County Road B. So that will be fine-tuned. And the applicant will be required to replace any trees per the engineer's requirement, city engineer's requirements, along Maplewood Drive for trees that need to be removed for grading purposes. Last slide here on parking and lighting. The existing store actually requires 940 spaces. The city over the years has approved several parking waivers, which now lands the store at 401 spaces. A new store, which is slightly bigger, would require just over 1,000 parking spaces, and the applicant is had initially requested a parking waiver to 430 spaces. With the site plan changes that staff is recommending, taking in the parking in certain areas, we're recommending that a minimum of 420 spaces be required, and the applicant again has reviewed that and has accepted that requirement. We do feel that that will sufficiently park the store as well. We'll need a revised photometric plan, as there were some areas, isolated areas throughout the site that exceeded the foot candle requirements, and we just need to make sure that meets all city requirements before a project moves forward. One last item on lighting. The CUP already requires storage yard and warehouse lights to be turned off after hours. Any lights in the warehouse area that aren't needed for security must turn off after 10 p.m. The CUP now further states that from staff's recommendation is that any other light on the exterior of the site that is to remain on, so for security purposes or in front of the building, need to be dimmed to 50% to help with, again, the illumination of the site. So we want to see that site taken down a little bit as the store closes, and we feel that will help mitigate the effect within the neighborhood. So that's what I have for slides. So staff is recommending approval based on our recommendations on items A, B, and C in your staff report, and those outline the items that the chair mentioned that you're reviewing tonight. The applicant is here and can address the questions from the commission, as can I, for any that you have for staff. And as the last reminder, as I think everyone's aware, this is a public hearing, so I'm just reminding the public, the chairperson of that. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Mr. Chair.
John, is it easier to get the requirements with retention ponds or with green space if you're trying to meet that?
Chair, Commissioner, I think it's kind of a horse apiece. It depends on what you want to use the land for. They can do it with a combination of, pervious asphalt, pervious pavement, pervious concrete, or they can provide additional stormwater treatment, specifically talking about, I guess, that shoreland overlay portion of the site. We're requiring that any portion of impervious over the 40% allowed, they would be required to infiltrate 1.65 inches of runoff over that impervious surface, which represents a 50% increase over our standard volume reduction requirement. And staff does feel that that adequately offsets that additional increase of impervious surface within that shoreland overlay
Which would be
portion of the site.
captured by storm drain.
Correct, some sort of infiltration basin, filtration basin, some sort of stormwater management feature.
And that would run into the retention pond then, basically, or does it have to go into the ground?
Infiltration would have to go directly into the ground. Filtration, they would route that into the storm sewer system, which would likely go into one of the ponds, yeah.
So in this report on page 2 of 5, in that attachment, it says that stormwater management will be going underground. So what does that mean?
Yes, Chair, Commission, a portion of their stormwater management is being accomplished via an underground stormwater chamber system. So it's pipes under the surface of the parking lot, essentially acting as an underground pond to slow the rate of runoff off the site. So today, all the runoff from that site discharges directly to the west into sedimentation basin on the west side of Highway 61, which then overflows directly into Keller Lake. So the proposal that they have before us today incorporates that underground pond underneath the parking lot, a pipe chamber system. It also incorporates a pond on the west side of the site along Maplewood Drive. And then on the southeast corner of the site, they're showing an infiltration basin to meet their volume reduction requirements. Based on the calculations they submitted, the rate of runoff after, in the proposed condition of this project would be a significant reduction. They're looking at about a 50 to 60% reduction in runoff coming off the site, despite all that impervious surface. So it is a significant improvement stormwater-wise.
So the water collection under the pavement, is that filtered somehow, or all the debris, oil, runoffs, whatever comes off the parking lot goes in and just runs into the lake?
Chair, Commission, yes. So the runoff that would enter into that system would be untreated right off that parking lot. Typically, those systems will have some sort of sedimentation structure upstream of them to capture sediment in that runoff. And then that underground parking chamber, under the system under the parking lot, that chamber system overflows into the pond along Maplewood Drive, which would further remove pollutants before it discharges into the storm sewer system.
Okay, that's good.
Well, it flows through aggregate too through the parking lot too, right, as it's coming down, as it's captured, or is that?
I didn't get a stormwater management report with this, so I don't know the exact details of that. Maybe the applicant can address that, but it appears that it goes directly into a pipe system.
Okay. Could you capture the roof water too and get it a better rating too?
You could capture the runoff from the roof, yes. I can't recall if this system was connected to the roof leaders or not, but it is possible, yeah.
Okay. Where is the gas pipeline running here? I didn't quite catch it on the layouts anywhere. It says it's parallel to the building, but...
That is, it's right along here.
Chair and Commission, I can, you see the dashed red line on the site plan? That's the easement for the pipeline. And so it runs north, west to southeast throughout the site.
What kind of pipeline is it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a gas pipeline.
Gas pipeline. Okay.
So it's okay to run asphalt over it and so on and be so close to the building?
Correct. Chair and Commission, the pipeline company just cares that you're not in the easement for buildings, but parking lots can be on it. They don't allow trees to be within the easement areas, but surface parking lot is acceptable.
Yeah.
Why in Shauna's report, did it talk about not removing the trees? What was the significance of not, I know you want to try to save the trees, but what was the, if we do the calibration of replacement, is that not sufficient? That
Chair and Commission, well, there's a balance of, yeah, sure, there's a tree preservation plan, but trying to preserve trees that are already mature and in place next to residential areas. So that's why those statements are in that report.
And now the fence, is that going to be on the perimeter, or is that going to be on those setbacks, or where does the walls go?
Chair and Commission, so the setbacks I was referring to would be subject, the fence would be subject to them too. So a fence or storage yard, nothing would be within 20 feet of residential areas of the new storage yard area or 30 feet from County Road B.
And they're going to be solid for soundproofing and that too, right?
They're going to be solid wood fences, but they're not specifically soundproof fences.
Okay.
So since the drive-through for the storage area is going to be at the back, what is the approximately distance between the two exits between Menaz and the Volkswagen dealership? You know, there's an exit for the Volkswagen dealership, so they'll be very, very close, you know, and the drive-through for the storage is going to be at the back over there. So will somebody have to move their drive-in or drive-through over there?
There's plenty of spacing between the drive lane for the access to storage yard and Schmelz. There's not a concern, I guess, of the spacing between those two. And that's something that was reviewed during the engineer review of the site plan.
Okay.
There was no consideration given to having a sidewalk between Schmelz and the Menards parking lot, since the building is coming right adjacent to the road?
Chair and Commission, at this point, no. That's something that we could hear requirements or suggestions from the commission if there was a feeling that there would be a desire for that. I think given what our initial take on it was the land use patterns that occur along Maplewood Drive, especially as you go east, are still mainly commercial, and doesn't have that same walkable feel that we're trying to do in other parts of the city, but we're open to hearing comments and recommendations from the commission.
Well, you're making more impermeable surface too. Then you got to figure out more drainage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you got 3 homes there. There are further homes across the street on County Road B. If people want to walk during the summer months with their dog or whatever, go for a walk.
They put the new bike path on the other side.
Yeah.
Put the blacktop on the other side.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, there's a trail on the other side.
Okay.
The parking lot, I'm concerned about that too, because you said right now it's 940 and we're going to drop down to, no?
Chair and Commission, what code would require today is 940, but what they actually have is 401.
Okay, and what are they going to have when completed?
For at least 420.
Okay, because they run out of parking during certain holidays.
Chair and Commission, and appreciate that comment, but we also don't want to be in a situation where a parking lot is overbuilt.
And they drop,
Concern for the parking is, with their plan, I don't remember how many spaces they were going to be at, but by eliminating the parking that we're recommending that they eliminate, would be eliminating 55 spaces, because I counted them. So then to be able to gain that, I don't know how you're going to gain it, but I guess that's a question for the applicant.
Chair and Board, and the applicant has started, or I'm sorry, Chair and Commission, the applicant has started to look at that. And we knew there would be some efficiencies based on how you could reconfigure the parking lot, and they feel confident that they can get to that minimum.
and they definitely dropped the idea of the underground parking.
That's, Chair and Commissioner, I only heard that from you.
Really? It's been in talks.
Okay.
Does the applicant want to come up then?
Good evening. Nick Brenner with Menards, 5101 Menard Drive. Mr. Martin did a great job explaining everything. I will have to concur that when we talk about the setbacks and, eliminating parking stalls and eliminating the access drive on the southern end, Menards has agreed to do all of that. So essentially, at this point, we are in agreement with city recommendations for this particular project. To comment on the parking, yes, it's a big variance. I can tell you that probably every single store that we do, we have to go get a parking variance. 425 is our magical number. That's really where we like to be. So at 420, we're right in line with that. So yeah, some holidays, Black Friday, yeah, the parking lot will be packed full. But 360 days out of the year, other than that, there's plenty of parking, and and Menards has a great interest to make sure there's sufficient parking, because if there's not, people go somewhere else to shop, and we definitely don't want that to happen. So, with that being said, Mr. Martin covered most of the topics I was going to mention to you today. So if you have any specific questions or comments, I'll be more than happy to provide some more information from you.
So did they ever consider the underground parking thing? Does that shot up right away, or what?
Never once have I considered that, but then also you run into underground detention too. So only so much room on a piece of property.
What's the width of the parking stalls? Is it going to be the same as it is today, or they're going to start getting narrower?
No, they are 10 by 20s. So we do have a little bit bigger stalls than what is required. The reason we do that is because of the size of vehicles that typically come to the store. We get a lot of contractor trucks. We want to make sure there's plenty of room. Nothing's more frustrating than trying to get out of your car and you have this much room to open the door and get out, and you get car dings and things like that. So that is our standard parking lot width throughout all of our stores.
Have you ever considered trailer parking spots?
We haven't, but we just assume that people have trailers are going to park in the back and take up a couple, 2 or 3 spots. Otherwise, they'll do that anyways, even if you have trailer parking. So we just leave that issue alone.
Yeah, I just park wherever I want, right?
I didn't say that, but yeah, that's what happens.
With some of the city's recommendations about some evergreens and deciduous trees, especially along County Road B and the fence being set back further, do you have provisions for maintaining the public side of those fences?
Yeah, so it will be, especially with as much setback as we'll have here, it will be our store's, duty or job to make sure that that is maintained, mowed, not just on County Road B in that setback area, but throughout the entire site, including all the detention ponds. The detention pond maintenance is a agreement that we will have with the watershed as well to make sure we're maintaining those. So that will all be on the store to do.
And there's also some fence setbacks with your neighbors that would have some plantings.
Yes.
So you would have the right to go in there and mow that and take care of it and keep the weeds down and everything, so.
We would make sure there's enough room between the fence and the property line to make sure we can do that. I guess there is one other question, Mr. Martin, I haven't brought up to you, but at our neighborhood meeting, that 8-foot fence between those 3 houses to the west, at least one owner has asked for that to be 10 feet. We are willing to do that. I don't know if that's an issue on the city side, but if we can raise that to 10 feet, we will definitely do that, help, shield a little bit more from that property on that side.
We'll raise the fence is what you
Yeah,
said?
we would redo it. We would take down what's there.
Yeah.
Technically, that's where our accessory building is, so it's coming down anyways. We would put up a brand-new 10-foot fence to help them out a little bit more, too.
Yeah.
Nichols, is there a code on the heights?
Chair and Commission, there is a height limit if you're within 4 feet of the property line. So for commercial properties, it's 10 feet. For residential properties, it's 6. If you're beyond that 4 feet, which the location of this fence is, there isn't a limit, but you have to engineer it and get that approved, but yeah.
Okay.
And I would go taller, but the engineering part is where it gets a little trickier. So we thought 10 feet would be a good place, make sure that fence is good.
Well, they can get ugly too when they get too big.
Sorry, what was that?
They can get ugly when they get too tall, too.
Yes.
Menards has been in Maplewood for a couple of years now, right? And you're expanding. Okay,
Yes.
so what will be the next few years? What do we expect in Maplewood from Menards?
In terms of operations?
Yes.
So, yeah, you're right. We've been here since 1989, over 30 years. We started off with a little box, and we've added on, expanded, remodeled a number of times in that 30 years. This store here, what we are proposing is our prototype. This is, we go out to a random cornfield in Ohio, this is the store that's getting built. Granted, the outside yard's a little bit bigger, the accessory building isn't quite so funky, but we've had to do that with the gas line and the configuration of this property. But what you're getting with this store is the best Menards store that you can get. It has our new online order center, where it's in the back of the building. If you order something online, you don't have to go in through the store to get it. You can just drive through the yard gate and go straight in there. Someone will help you load it up, and you can take off. It's very efficient. It's Menards' way to keep competing against online retailing, and we have seen businesses that have been around for years that haven't been able to adapt, and they have closed their doors. And Menards is doing whatever we possibly can to avoid that. And this online order center that I'm talking about, this is a remodel that we have rolled out to all 300 of our stores across the Midwest in the last 4 years. So it's something that the company spent a lot of money investing in because it is that important to make sure that we continue to compete against the new retail world.
So is there any chance going from 11% to 22%?
I mean, I would say I would probably love that as well, because that benefits me too. But I don't foresee that happening. I mean, 11% used to be like once a year. Now it's like at least once a month. So I guess we can take that for what it is.
And the two-story buildings are a thing of the past, too, aren't they?
Correct. Yep. Company made a decision about a year and a half ago that we're no longer doing them. I don't know the full reasoning behind them. All I know is it came down from the ownership office. I don't question what they do. So they, as of right now, are not an option. Otherwise, we probably would have looked at one for this particular site, but with it not being an option, there's just not even worth looking at or talking about. So
what's the plan for starting and completing this project, if you
Yeah.
get approvals?
So a brand new store takes about 6 or 9 months to build. With the tear down of this store, we usually add about another 3 months onto it. So about a year process from start to finish. During that time, our employees are offered relocation position at the other Menards store, so we don't lay off anyone. And the reason why is, one, because we want to treat our employees well, but two is we need to hire employees when the new store opens. So we would like those employees to go and keep working for the company and come back when the new store opens. So there is positives in that. It might be inconvenient for a lot of them, but it's over a year, it's a short period, relatively speaking. So it's a big project.
What's the thought on when do you start it?
Pardon?
When would you start the project?
So pending everything goes well here with the approvals, we are looking to wrap everything up this spring, approval-wise. We have some residents in these houses that we are buying that have the ability to stay in their houses post-closing, so they can look for different places to live. That would push us out probably until middle of the fall, and with that, we wouldn't start in the winter or in late fall, so we'd probably be looking at early 2021, spring of 2021, to start the project.
Does that create a problem with being closed during the summer months?
It hurts. Yeah, being closing the store down during the summer is definitely going to be felt within the company, but we feel that this project is significant enough and is a good enough improvement for not only the company but for the community as well, that it's worth it.
So you think you'll be able to make it work with the water filtration and all that to make it get to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we got a pretty good start and pretty good handle on it. We did submit to the watershed last week. We did get some comments. We're working through those. Probably will have a response back to them by Friday. With the changes in setbacks, we are We are moving the fences in, so we are gaining quite a bit of green space from what we originally proposed. So that is only going to help us in our stormwater facilities. But right now, we have 3 ponds proposed above ground, and we have an underground detention, as John stated. So, yeah, I feel there's plenty of room to be able to accommodate the stormwater, and it's going to be so much more improved than what's out there today, because everything today just sheet drains to the west. And I know there's some neighbors that will complain about that, and that's unfortunate that's happened, but this new project, the detention, is going to substantially improve that for everyone in the area.
Now, what can we do to comfort people about the noise, too? I know that's going to be a concern, that closer to the, to the south there and that, what?
Yep, so our 14-foot fence will be brand new. I think that will do a lot of good things. The fact that we're now keeping a bunch of trees that we originally were going to take down will also help. We are also going to add evergreens to the site, which will help year-round with the sound, and we are also going to supplement non-evergreen, so add sugar maples and things like that. Altogether, I think on our site, if I looked at it right, not including the 77-ish trees is somewhere around there that we're saving. Right now, we are proposing about another 80 trees to supplement those. So there is going to be significant landscaping all around the site, around the residential. If it is deemed that more landscaping is required, some more trees, I can definitely take that into consideration. Obviously, don't want to overclutter things because then, the trees will suffocate themselves out. But if it makes sense and it works to add some more, or maybe change some more of the types, I'm definitely willing to look at that a little bit and work with the city on that.
Will you be planting trees in front of the fence that faces to the public, that kind of covers that then, if it's a
Correct.
screen too?
Yep, that's where all the trees are going to be, because on the other side of the fence is our outside yard, and that's where all the impervious is. So all the trees I'm talking about is between the right-of-way and the fence, or the neighboring properties and the fence.
Okay. Guys got anything down there? You awake down there?
Mm-hmm. No, I am, but I am.
I think we're okay.
Okay, I'm going to just add one kind of closing statement before, I guess, a lot of the, I'm sure there's some citizens that are going to come. I understand that not everyone is completely on board with this project. From my experience, it's very rare if ever that ever happens, especially when you're talking about a project of this magnitude. But what I always try to do, and what the company always try to do, is come to that compromise in that middle ground. We submitted a plan. We heard comments from the neighbor in the city. We have agreed to accommodate those city comments, which actually covered a lot of the citizen comments that I had in our neighborhood meeting last week. So I just wanted to point that out. I think there's a good middle ground that's been struck with agreeing to what the city has said. And yeah, if there's any other questions as we go here, I'm more than happy to come back up and answer them.
Yeah, I agree that you guys are willing to work. You're going to be around a long time, so I'm sure you're willing to work with to make whatever the residents happy.
Yep, absolutely. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
Who wants to start? With the amount of guests we have here today, we are going to try to limit it to about 3 minutes too, so it don't get too long and carried away.
Before I start speaking, can I sign in, or?
Yes, go ahead.
But that's not part of my time.
Depends on how bad you're talking. If you're
Just
talking
gotta
bad-
make sure you know that.
If you're talking bad about me, you're done.
Yes, I am a Maplewood resident. Maplewood resident. Hi. Hello, my name is Jean Anderson, and I live at 2255 Duluth Street. 2255 Duluth Street has been in Maplewood since 1955. It was built by my mom and dad. First of all, yeah, I'm against building this building, the new building, and to what it will do to a great existing neighborhood. There are nice, affordable homes here that have been in existence for many, many years. What Menards is choosing to do here will be to destroy the neighborhood that will remain after they have built their new store. You will hear and have heard with comments sent into your offices from the neighbors along with others that will be affected about the fence, the lighting, the noise, the removal of valuable trees, the snow melting, and the flooding. So I will not add any more on this. But just to tell you that our home is right in back of the Menards, right in back. Our yard and a little bit of fields is right in back of their fence. And by the way, that fence, if this is approved for this, that fence has to go. I heard at the meeting that Nick had, that, oh, they're going to keep that fence. Oh, no, that fence has to go. It's awful. Okay. So anyway, one thing I wanted to say was, at the Community Design and Review Board meeting, they tabled their approval of this, by the way. One reason was the height of the building behind on us on Duluth Street was too high. And I just wanted to know how will Menards fix that. But I just wanted to say that tearing all those trees down that they are planning to tear down, I know it just, I cannot believe this, that they're going to tear all these trees down in back of all those houses that they're going to remove to put some other stuff up there and maybe pay into the fund for the tree fund. Some of these are trees that have been there since the 30s and the 40s because that's when those houses were built, you guys, the 30s and the 40s. These are affordable homes. They've been there for that long. So in that one house that's right down the hill, that we call it Grandma Jungman's house, she's the one that sold my mom and dad the property, the land that we built our house on. Thank you very much for the time. And once again, we are definitely opposed to this. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Judy, did you want to speak too, or?
I did. My name is Judy Zielinski. I'll just put Maplewood residents on the same. I'm part owner of the 2255 Duluth Street. In the mid-1950s, our father built our home on 2255. Menards has been trying to purchase this property since 2002. They approached my parents several times. What they wanted to do for the store is to have space behind the store for trucks to move around better. They would have built a very high wall, about 30 feet from the back of my mom and dad's house. My parents could live in the house for free for as long as they want. All they had to do was now look at a wall in their backyard. My father lived in the home until 2013, and my mother did until 2017 when she moved into a care facility, but Jean lives there now. My parents did not agree to sell, even though Menards came back several times, and I can't even imagine how many times they came back. Even after my mom passed, they've been there. So with this new change to light manufacturing zoning, Menards would like, what will stop them from purchasing the homes on Duluth Street in the future and then building a wall? Then there would be no homes to block the wall from the neighbors that remain on Duluth, and there are neighbors on Duluth, or even Lark Avenue, which goes up there. They would now all get to look at a wall. Will this new rezoning to light manufacture then open the door for more commercial ventures to come into our existing neighborhood, approving smaller setback variances and to lose additional homes? If it is rezoned, is this a slippery slope to more developments invading our neighborhood, thus more homes being torn down, more trees taken down, more families displaced, and more walls to look at? There were several comments on the city staff report, and I really do appreciate what they looked at. I really do. With the variances, especially the 50-foot variance for that corner. Anyway, about all of the development that would really affect the remaining neighbors, including this comment: removing 6 homes and expanding the footprint of the store will require mitigating factors to minimize the impact on the remaining neighbors. It seems they're kind of concerned about us because it's the remaining neighbors. It's the ones that are going to be there, the ones across County Road B looking at a wall no matter how many trees you put in front of it, and the ones that we have, and like Jean said, with the building height and everything. But one additional comment that is going to affect us remaining neighbors is the property values. They will go down. I did some research on this online, and according to a home-based, the Center for Common Concerns report, those larger commercial developments and projects tend to have a much greater impact, a negative one, on your home values. So this is also what the remaining neighbors get to look for. So thank you very much, and thank you very much for your time.
Can I make a comment too now, I guess? Do you think that the wall would be better if it wasn't a wall and it was just open and let the noise come out? No, the wall, if you didn't have the wall. And No, I know you want your wall.
Oh, we love our wall.
I know you love your wall. But I'm talking about the people that, with the new wall, is that?
No, if they buy the homes on Duluth Street and then expand it, then the neighbors on Duluth Street now will look at a wall. We're saying what's happening in the future, what could happen.
Oh, okay, but what about the wall on County Road B, if that'd be better that the noise
No,
was
they
escaped?
need to have something there for those people.
Okay.
Okay. We're not building at all.
Howdy. Bill Skadden. I live at 1112 County Road B. So I live directly across, I'm right in the corner of County Road B and Day Street. My front yard looks into two of the houses that are going to be taken down. I appreciate the staff's report. I think that the recommendations that they have made will go a long way into helping keep it at least feel like a neighborhood. I think that one thing that might be looked at, if it's possible for the city to say that they have to do this, is the height of the coniferous evergreens that they place in there. I know there are places throughout the Midwest where you can go and buy 15, 18-foot tall evergreens. By putting something in there, we were specifically excluded in one of the comments because being directly across the road, we were up on a hill. So looking out my front door, I'm probably at least 14 feet above the roadbed where I am. So regardless, we'll see over the top of the fence. But having some at least somewhat mature evergreens would make a big difference. I think that would help quite a bit. And I think maybe we should actually have Menards decorate them in the wintertime. It would look nice. Other than that, the story, I think we can all agree the store is run down. It's not a very good excuse for a store, and it needs to be torn down, and being rebuilt is a fine option. Unfortunately, with the decline in the value of the houses in the area, I'm sure the property taxes will probably go down. And the fact that every single property that Menards owns in Minnesota, they have gone and fought to devalue their property values and pay less tax based on the dark store loophole that many states are fighting. So that's something to keep into consideration for a corporate neighbor. The other thing is with the groundwater and the runoff. Menards specifically has been fined just over $2.8 million, I think, over the last 18 to 20 years for EPA violations as well as OSHA violations. And making sure that they are compliant with all of the runoff and all of the water that takes place going into the lakes is very important, I believe. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Before you go, could you make sure you sign the sheet too before? Sorry about that.
You can sign me in too, honey. Good evening. My name's Gretchen Hagan. I live in the same house as Bill. That's 1112 County Road B East. And just a reminder, we're right across from two of the homes that have a purchase agreement and will be taken down. But before I forget, I wanted to say thank you for your volunteer service to our community. I made myself a few notes. They're really excellent notes, but I didn't bring my reading glasses. So I'm going to just riff about, I might need some of those. I wanted to emphasize that even though we've learned a few things about the ownership of Menards in this experience, we, as neighbors, definitely support the staff at the store. We're excellent customers of Menards. We do, after all, live in an 81-year-old home, and we're probably their target customer. We have two incomes, and our home was in kind of a state of disrepair when we moved in 13 years ago. And more often than not, when we're making a trip to Menards, we say we're going to the neighbors. So that's how we describe it. I will say, though, this is a very difficult situation for us to be in. It's an emotional situation. I have financial fears about it for the loss of a property value. We're being asked to involuntarily move our home from a residential neighborhood to a mixed commercial zoning neighborhood. And that is candidly not what we signed up for. Having said that, I am a business person and I am also a realist. And I understand that this project is going to move ahead one way or another. I get it. I can see the writing on the wall. So what I'm here today as a realist is to ask you to consider the impact that it has on our family and the families in the neighborhood and the community overall. And so for me, almost all of it is about the fence. I have said before in the community meeting that good fences make good neighbors, and this is not a good fence. As Bill said, like our little home, it sits on a rise. It's one of the reasons we chose this house. The light is beautiful. I call it the little farmhouse in the city. But when you look out our kitchen window now, without saving all those mature trees, we'll have just a view into the lumberyard and a drastically improved view of Highway 36, which is, not what we're looking for. So I can't support the plan with the new 30-foot setback. That's really encouraging to me. I would also ask that you require some baffling or soundproofing on the fence. I think that can make a huge difference for the community overall. And then the other thing is that I would just ask that if you're able to require that the fence go up first prior to demolition and construction instead of at the end of the project. We understand this is a really big project and a year plus is a long time to live right next to a construction zone of that magnitude. So I wanted to say personally that if you have any questions, Bill and I personally would like to invite you to our home for coffee. Bill makes excellent cookies. And
What about donuts?
all kinds of them. We just want you to know that what is concerned to be details for other people are really important to us. It's going to make or break my personal ability to stay in this home. And, we are working folks. That's a big deal to us. And so we ask that you hold our plight gently in your hands and with respect and humility for the impact that it has on our lives and the lives of our neighbors. Thank you.
Thanks. We definitely consider all those things.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here tonight. My name is Kevin Ristine. I live at 1174 County Road B, which is the southwest corner of County Road B and Duluth Street. So we're towards the east side of it, but we're right there. I have two main concerns, and it's based on the application questions that was there. One is reducing traffic congestion. And I think what's going to happen with the design is actually going to increase traffic congestion on County Road B. Because right now the lumberyard is on the southwest corner. Trucks go in through the lumberyard, come right out. Their closest exit goes right down, avoiding all of the residential streets, go right to Highway 61. Now where it's at, it's going to be on the northeast corner. And the trucks are going to be, they're going to want to go right, and they're either going to go up to the Holiday Station store, which is already congested, or they're going to turn right on Atlantic, which is going to take them to County Road B, and they're going to go right through the residential area. So I do believe that their plan right now is going to increase traffic, and it's probably going to increase it quite a bit, and especially in front of my house. So the second one is obviously the property value. I do believe it's going to reduce it, having that fence in front. I think it helps having that setback retained. What bothers me is the plans didn't really give us any idea what that fence was going to look like. Just says we're going to have a fence. And they want us to give our nod of approval without having really any idea what that's going to look like. If you look at the school people that were here, I mean, they gave a really nice representation of what that was going to look like. And I really think we deserve to know what that's going to look like and how it's going to affect us. And I love Menards. I'm a small contractor. There's some people there that know I'm there every day. I don't have a problem with that. What I'd really like is my separate personal door in that fence so I can just go right in and do my business. But those are my two biggest concerns in how it's going to affect us. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? We're going to keep the wall. We're going to keep the wall.
Hello, my name is Deborah Dupre, and I live at 1071 East County Road B, better known as Ground Zero. And I have lived there since 1986. The biggest concern that I have is the holding pond and the ability of the holding pond not to overflow, to run adequately into a separate system as to what my yard drains out of. And if I could approach and show you pictures 3 times, this has happened at my property. We have had to endure severely flooded property 3 times in the past regarding inadequate drainage. There's something wrong with the drainage system, and when we have a severe melting and a severe rain, it runs down from the neighbors and oftentimes does not cause enough pressure to open up and flow into the culvert. And then there have been other times where there's a flapper in there or something, and it's not set correctly for a heavy rain, and it comes into the opposite direction through the culvert and floods my yard. Just last winter, I was out in chest-deep rain in the snow in the spring trying to hook up a sup pump to get it, to try to stay ahead of it. And in fact, we had to end up calling 911 and have city workers come out and change the flap on the drainage system to help get the water out of our yard. So that is number one. There has to be a superb working drainage system, because I don't know if you have seen the Menards Mountains, but that snow is piled 20 feet in the air, and if we get a sudden melt, where is that snow going to go? It's going to overflood the holding pond, because that's exactly where they're going to put the holding pond, is where they pile all that snow. And they pile it all along the back of the fence, and that also has flooded over and washed over the berm and flooded my yard. So we would want to make sure that there's adequate drainage. I'm in favor of a 10-foot fence, a brand-new fence. That'd be great. There was some talk about a sanitary sewer realignment, which was not discussed tonight, so I don't know if that's happening, and I'd like to know where that is. And would that be the public utility easement? I'm wondering.
Go ahead, Mike.
Chair and Commission, so public hearings for vacation of either right-of-way or vacations are done at the City Council, and the Planning Commission does not have a role in looking at that. So all these same neighbors will receive a public hearing notice on that. And John can, again, augment my comments here, but the sewer lines that they're looking to vacate are unused sewer lines, so they are not in operation today. So they're looking to vacate those easements.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous. Okay, so while you were looking at those pictures, I did say that I am definitely in favor of a new 10-foot fence, because if the existing fence stays there, then in 5 years, it could be a shambles, and then we'll have to come back and fight for it. So as long as they're a lumber company, right? As long as they're putting in new fencing, they can redo the fence exactly the way it is, but make it a little higher, 10 feet. And one last comment, that flooding episode, I had to seek medical attention for post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm not just making that up. I have doctor bills that I could produce if you need to see them. It was very, very traumatic.
I bet. I'm sure this will help, because the water's got a place to go.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Were you gonna add anything? Are you gonna add anything to her, or?
You want me to add to her?
I was just wondering if you were going to.
Oh, I could. My name's Kathy Dupre. I live at 1071 East County Road B. And you all know we love our wall, but I want everybody else to know if they're looking for a wall, it doesn't do anything for sound. It keeps us from not having to look at the traffic on the service road, but it doesn't do anything for all the truck noise and jake braking and all of that goes along with copious amounts of semis that use that road to get to Menards. And then my other concern was when they tear down all of this, is there something in the works to keep, I mean, it could have asbestos in these old homes, could have asbestos on the pipes in the existing. Is there anything?
They wet that down when they do that.
That's a legal requirement before you can demo any building, is to do asbestos testing and mitigate it. So that is testing that we will do prior to demolition. It is legally required to do that.
Is there, okay.
Here for us that live here? Yeah, right. Who's done?
Because it's going to happen during the summer, and, you know, like was brought up before, you like to have your windows open in the summer. So this project's going to really cause a headache for us for the whole time that they're building it. I don't personally think they need this big building in our neighborhood. I mean, they have plenty of business. You go there any time of the day and night, the parking lot's full. I don't think the people turn away because there's not enough product on site, which is one of the reasons they want to build it. They need more product on site. And I just don't buy it, but like everybody knows, it's going to go whether we like it or not. So I guess that's maybe all I have to add to what Deb already said. We're concerned about the water, obviously. So if they can address that, that'd be one thing that would really help us. And then, I know, the other thing is they say that they're going to, when they plant their trees and stuff along B there, they're going to go in there and maintain that and mow it and everything. Well, in the back of our yard, we have our wall on the side, and then we have their fence on the back, and then from their fence to their property line, there's bazillion trees there, cottonwood trees. They don't come and maintain that. All the leaves and all the branches that fall off of them trees, it's all in there. It's a mess, and we try to go in there and clean it up. But if they're going to clean up, then they should come and clean up behind that fence also, and maybe cut down some of the smaller, scaggy trees that are kind of bent over and keeping the pine trees on the other side from getting enough sun to to grow up. So that would be something I would like to see happen also.
Sure.
Other than that, that's all I got.
Good deal. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, staff. Thank you. My name is Samantha Crosby. I reside at 1133 County Road B East, and I wanted to specifically go after them because it sounds to me like there's a real opportunity here to resolve an existing problem within the neighborhood. We have an applicant that is going to, because of his impervious area variance, be required to provide additional stormwater management treatment, which has not been designed yet. So maybe the design should be focused on the southwest corner of the property to help alleviate some of these neighbors' concerns. So I really feel like there could be a potential win-win solution there for the neighborhood. Anyhow, aside from that, I have suggested some changes to the recommended conditions of approval. I provide them to you with the hopes that you'll incorporate them into your approval by way of your motion this evening. I'll provide a quick overview of what this states for the people in the audience. The outdoor storage area that is along County Road B is essentially a brick and lumber yard. I mean, this is kind of more of a use that has an industrial feel to it than really a commercial feel. It's unenclosed, it's, beeping and dropping of pallets, and I think that I just ask that you please provide more of a substantial structure, maybe something that's more like a wall, or as some other community members have recommended, sound buffering the fence or providing more landscaping. The thing that really concerns me about this fence or wall or whatever it is that it seems to be pretty ineffective to actually screen the neighborhood when the shelving and all the storage of materials is going to be allowed to be 27 feet tall, and the fence is only 17 feet tall, and the fence is only 14 feet tall. And also the lighting is allowed to be 25 feet tall, but the fence is only 14 feet tall. I mean, what are we screening if the storage and the lighting is all taller than the fence? So I would ask that please either shorten the storage and the lighting or increase the height of the fence, which, as some other people have said, that, maybe a 28-foot tall or 25-foot tall wall isn't really the most aesthetic thing. So maybe just let's lower the lighting so that it's not over the fence. I mean, dark happens after 5 p.m. in the wintertime, and they're open until 10 p.m. So this lighting will affect the neighboring property owners. Also, if the code requires something as compatible as a single-family residence to be approximately 60 feet from the County Road B property line, why should a use as incompatible as a lumber yard be allowed to be half of that? In the R1 zoning district, where there are dwellings on either side of an interior lot, I quote, "The minimum setback shall be the setback of the adjacent dwelling closest to the street," meaning that any one of these 6 houses that are being sold, if they were building a new residential home on the property, they would have to be as far back as all the other residential homes in line with them. So why would a lumber yard not have to be that far back? I think that I appreciate what staff is recommending with a 30-foot setback. I would advocate for even more. I think that doing any less than that is not actually preserving the existing character of the neighborhood, and I would just ask that you please picture yourself living in the homes across the street that are facing this proposal. Next, the company representative said at the neighborhood meeting that there would not be a construction entrance on County Road B, so I say let's hold them to that. And rock riprap around the warehouse building is unsightly, unnecessary, and inappropriate. We don't need piles of rock in this residential neighborhood. They should be required to plant those areas. Thank you for your time.
Anybody?
Let's go.
I'm for it. Didn't come and say that.
You live in the neighborhood?
Right behind the fence.
My backyard.
Hello, Tim Skiffington. I live at 1127, been a resident there, 1127 County Road B East. Been a resident there 6 years. And I've enjoyed, I guess, less to say, Menards being a neighbor. I've had no real noise concerns. Our backyard butts up to the, roughly, I have no idea what it is, 15, 20-foot fence that's currently there. Have never had an issue as far as noise or excessive noise, excessive lights. I feel like they do a pretty good job of blocking most of that out. And in fact, prior to receiving a letter in the mail offering to buy originally a portion of our property and then ultimately all of our property, looking at remodeling our home, doing expansion, and staying, being their neighbor, we enjoyed living where we were at and looked forward to staying there and continuing to be their neighbor. And as far as the condition of the building in its current state, I think it is time for a tear down and a rebuild, get a more aesthetically pleasing building in that location, which is already a location that is zoned commercial mixed in with residential. So I feel like nothing's really changing there. Just a better looking building. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Which one is your house?
1127 County Road B East. Backyard butts right up to the fence.
So it's one of the 3 homes that's being left right now?
No. Second one in that's being torn down. Second one in from the west that's being torn down.
Oh, so your house is actually getting torn down?
Correct.
Okay.
Originally, I wasn't going to. I was going to stay.
Where do you live? I'm looking right across the street from you. I literally am. I tried to buy the one on Bay Road. Right across the street. Literally, I'd like your information. I want to stay. Hi. My name is Taryn Fishbach, and I am the owner of one of the 6 proposed properties to be bought and torn down by Menards. I have lived there for almost 11 years and have never once been bothered by noise, light, or traffic from the business. The view from my backyard is a fence, quite frankly, a really nice private fence. Up until Menards mailed out the proposal for the project, I have never been approached by a single neighbor concerning the fact that I look at a fence or have their lumber yard in my backyard. Not until the remodel idea was introduced, and they might be looking at the fence, was it ever an issue, because quite frankly, to them, it was someone else's problem. The one neighbor that did come over to ask at the project actually thought that I'd only lived there for 2 years, not the nearly 11. He never once asked how it was to live with Menards as a neighbor. If he had, I would have expressed to him that I have never had an issue with them. As a neighbor, not once. I understand the fear of the unknown. The idea of change can be overwhelming, but we live in a time that change needs to happen. Menards as a business has outgrown their existing lot, and they are looking to expand. They by no means are forcing any of us out of our houses and will be fairly compensating everyone for their properties. After looking over the proposed plan for the project, I feel as if Menards is making a fair effort in the design remodel of their store. There will be professional landscaping done on the County Road B side of the project, and from what I have heard from the list of concerns, that was at the top. That's already nicer than what I currently have in my existing backyard. And like I stated before, it's a nice private fence. I know noise from the construction itself has been brought up. With construction, there is obviously noise. I'm a construction worker myself, and I have never been on a project that regular work hours last past 3:30. This project might have hours that run a little later, but it will only be to speed up the project, therefore creating less noise in an overall length for the concerned neighbors. I have also found that the idea of tearing down perfectly good, affordable homes has been brought up as a major concern as well. I cannot speak for all of the property owners involved, but I know my home needs a lengthy list of very costly repairs. And it is out of the feasible price range for us to tackle. Yes, these are homes that have been there since the 40s and 50s, but these are homes that are in need of a lot of work, something that I don't think has been taken into consideration by the neighboring property owners. Menards has been professional and pleasant to work with overall through the process, and from what I have seen from their proposal, I believe they have worked out a nice overall layout for the project. I don't foresee any major issues from this project overall and believe it is in the best interest of the city to move forward with this project. Thank you for your time.
Oh, nice, Sid.
That's a good letter.
Thank you.
Anybody else? What about you, Chris? You have anything? Yours?
We are Menards reporters, just so you know. I really get there.
Yeah, I've seen both of them in Menards.
Just as a lady, Thursday. Okay, this is the second to the last call.
Make it a last call.
This is gonna be the last call. Anybody? Last call? Or forever hold your peace. Okay, close the public hearing. Thank you. Any discussion?
My one question is for the Menards rep. We've heard some comments here about
Nick,
some
Nick, you
change.
wanna come up to the?
We've heard some comments about some recommendations like taller evergreen trees or making taller fences and so on. Are those some of the inputs that you received when you had your community meetings in that area? Or is this new to you? Or is that something that you can't do? What's your position?
The taller evergreens was mentioned at the neighborhood meeting. We'll definitely look into that and coordinate that with the rest of the landscape plan on the site and make sure that, just as I said before, we're not overcrowding. Obviously, taller pine trees means wider pine trees, so we'll just have to double check and make sure that we're spacing everything correctly. So I will definitely take a look at that and work with the city to get that done. The taller fence, the 14-foot, I think that might have been mentioned. I don't necessarily recall that. It's a 14-foot tall wood fence. I mean, you get pieces of lumber. I mean, that's the appearance of it. That is our standard fence height for all of our stores. Our racking sits on the inside of that. The material does not go over the 14-foot tall fence. You can't see it. There are some lights that are above the 14-foot tall, but they're angled at a 15% away from the line, and what that does is it shines it into the fence area. Sure, you might see it from the outside, but our photometric plan also proves that the brightness outside that fence is non-existent. Sure, you might see it, but it doesn't affect you from a brightness standpoint. Just like you can see the stars, but that doesn't affect you. Same kind of concept, obviously very drastic ends, but generally that's the same concept. So 14-foot tall fence, we've never done taller than that because really we've never had to. It usually satisfies the community and the neighbors, and that's what we've always done.
Okay. And then we also had the comment about your existing property not being maintained for the backyard there.
Yeah,
so that's something you want to take back to your management as well.
Yep, we can talk to store with that too. I just want to point, that's woods back there. There's a lot of big trees. There's not much grass in between them. That's like walking in the woods. Not where we're planning on County Road B, where you have more space, you have some grass in between, some shrubs. So that's probably why it hasn't been maintained, is because you really can't maintain woods that well. So, but we will definitely talk about that internally and talk with store management on that.
Yeah, maybe cleaned up, put some sod down, do something different so that you're making your neighbors satisfied that it stays in orderly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then it would be a concern for your neighbors that what you're going to put out there may not as well be maintained, because what you have, you're not maintaining. How are you going to be guaranteeing that the next new stuff would be maintained?
Fair point. Yep, fair point.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, they have a way of contacting for input too. Everybody has a contact.
The neighbors?
Yes.
They have all my contact information. I've sent that out to, I think most of the people that spoke here today were at my neighborhood meeting. I sent them a notice of that neighborhood meeting with all my contact information on it. They obviously are right next to the store, so they're more than welcome to walk over to the store too and talk to management there as well. So many different avenues to reach us.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Or do you look like you want to propose this one? What about Lou? He's the new guy down there. You ready, Lou?
You want to make a recommendation or?
Sure.
Read right up in this. Those are the 3 recommended actions that we're going after.
All right. Motion to approve a resolution for a comprehensive plan amending re-guiding the residential properties from low-density residential to mixed-use community.
B and C, you gotta read it.
And B, motion to approve an ordinance amending the city's zoning map to rezone the residential properties from R1 single dwelling to M1 light manufacturing. And C, motion to approve a resolution for a conditional use permit amendment, setback variances, and shoreland overlay impervious surface variance.
I'll second that. There's been a motion by Lou, second by me. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing all ayes, pass. This is just a recommendation. This will go before the city council on February. Nope.
No, Chair and Commission, because the CDRB tabled their portion of the review tonight, it will go before them tentatively on February 18th. That's not a guarantee. We have to see if the applicant is able to submit that in time for us to make that meeting. So if people are interested in keeping up to speed, please visit our website. We have a specific Menards website, maplewoodmn.gov/Menards, or you can look at the CDRB's website to see when their agendas come out. Once the CDRB has completed their review and made a recommendation of some form, then we would bring that to the city council. And what I would emphasize to all those in the room is that when we have a tentative sense, or when we know when we're going to bring it to city council because of that public vacation, that's a public hearing as well. So we will be sending notices to all of these same property owners within 500 feet, alerting them of when that city council date is. But I don't have that date at this point.
Okay. Any comments or anything?
Nope.
Okay. Moving along then. New business, city council meeting attendance schedule for planning commission staff.
Chair and Commission, this is an item we do at the first meeting every year, and this just outlines who goes to council when to present Planning Commission reports. Unfortunately, earlier today, I learned that Mr. Kempe is not seeking reappointment, so this is already out of date. But you can just take Bill's dates and put to be determined. Everyone else will stay the same. But that will bring up to later on your agenda, we do talk about the next council meeting where John Glenn Middle School and the 47th Century Avenue North are going, and that was Mr. Kempe's turn on the cycle. So if there's someone else that is willing to attend from this group tonight, you can either let me know tonight or in the next couple of days. But more to the point of this item, here's your schedule for the rest of the year.
Well, I'm up for appointment too, so if I don't get appointed, then you'll have another vacancy as well.
Well, let me ask you this, Tushar, are you seeking reappointment?
I filled out the form, so.
Well, we're on our way. All right. Thank you.
Michael, I'll volunteer to go on the 10th.
All right, thank you,
City
Lou.
council. Gotcha.
Commissioner visitors presentations. Anybody want to give us any cookies or donuts?
I'll throw things at you.
Yes. I don't think there's any presentations, right? Commissioners report, February 10th, city council meeting, Commissioner Kempe, what you just talked about. And then the last one, you filled in for John, and did that pass? That was the, what was it that was before the November?
You're putting me in a big hole. I have no idea.
You don't remember everything?
But nothing was denied.
Pass.
There you go.
Pass. Yeah, pass.
So, yeah.
Okay. Any staff presentations?
The only thing I'll add, as I'm sure we're wanting to keep talking here, is I handed out your annual reports, and that's for the for the Community Development Department and the commissions that we staff, so you're included on that. If you do see small typos, please keep it to yourself, because there's nothing we can do.
No, it's gone.
Yes. If you have ideas for next year, I'm all ears.
Yep.
I will ask that we are presenting this to the City Council on January 27th. And so if Mr. Arbuckle, as the chair of the planning commission, is able to attend, we would ask for his presence, as all chairs are being asked to attend that night.
That's next Monday, right?
Yes.
Well, I want to say that it's a very good comprehensive report.
Excellent.
Very good, more inclusive, better than the previous years I was there.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Great, good to hear, thank you.
Let's adjourn these things past.
Good job. And then Fred had something he wanted to say?
Let's get going.
Okay, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All right, we're done.
Aye.